In this section, I want to cover Azure subscriptions. In this section, you will learn about Azure subscriptions, and I will also walk you through a demo on how you can create an Azure trial subscription yourself. Let me start with Azure subscriptions. Quite important is knowing the difference between the different subscription models Azure has available today, and I'm going to talk about how to authenticate against this Azure subscription. Let me start with Azure subscription models. Overall, Microsoft Azure is available on a pay-as-you-go or pay-per-use model, but it provides you different Azure subscription models. The different subscriptions available today is the easiest one, pay-as-you-go, which mainly relies on using a credit card. So you create your subscription, you start deploying Azure resources, and at the end of the month, you pay for the consumed services. It's like a water or electricity bill, if you want, where you pay by using a credit card. Another approach is using an annual subscription, where you agree with Microsoft to close an enterprise agreement. You specify a certain amount of consumption per year, and you allocate this amount of money to Microsoft. And then the billing can happen per month or per year if you want. Other mechanisms are using Microsoft Distributor, where you can buy consumption vouchers. So instead of using a credit card, you go out to your Microsoft Distributor channel and you buy a couple of consumption vouchers, where each voucher has a certain value of consumption for Azure services. Another model is through a Microsoft reseller known as a Cloud Solution Provider or CSP, where you, instead of paying directly to Microsoft, you're paying to your solution provider. And some other ones, MSDN, Microsoft Developer Network, BizSpark, are specific subscriptions for developers, for students, or the one that you might use by going through some demos out of this course is using the 30-day free trial subscription, which at the time of creating this course represents a value of about $200 US, allowing you access to most of the Azure available services. So you can deploy web apps, you can deploy virtual machines, you can deploy Azure storage, and a lot of other different Azure components and services, up to a maximum of 30 days or up to a maximum of the consumed $200 US. At the end of the trial subscription, you can opt in for one of the other already mentioned subscription models. Within an Azure subscription model, I'm talking about the organizational layer of the subscription. An organization itself can have one or multiple subscriptions. So think of a global international organization. They can decide to use one single subscription for all regions, or defining that each and every region of the organization must allocate by their own specific Azure subscription. Within an Azure subscription, you can deploy multiple resources, and more of these resources can be shared between subscriptions, like virtual networks, for example. A subscription is the mainly boundary for billing and administration and reporting. So it's not really a technical limitation, it's more a grouping for billing and administration. Now, when talking about Azure subscriptions, we also talk about Azure accounts. Azure subscription recognizes three different layers. The first one is called the account admin, can be only one, and this is the overall root owner of the subscription having full access to everything. A second Azure account that is available and is being created when deploying an Azure subscription is called the service admin, which again is one single account for that subscription, allowing you administration of the subscription itself, but not having access to billing data. And next to that, You can deploy multiple co-admins, as the Azure account is being called, and they can manage everything within the Azure subscription, but they cannot change the subscription association. For each Azure subscription, there are specific Azure resource limits, which can be hard limits or soft limits, like a specific amount of storage IOPS that you can use, or a specific amount of virtual machines that you can deploy, a specific amount of web apps, and so on and so on. What we mean by a hard limit is it's the maximum limit for that subscription, or a soft limit pointing to it's a limitation that's being activated out of the subscription, but if you need more resources, then Microsoft Azure will provide them. Now, it should be clear that Azure and authentication are really going hand in hand. Whenever you want to log on to the Azure portals, the classic one or the Azure Resource Manager one, you always have to authenticate. Azure recognizes two different authentication models. The first one is by authenticating from what's called an organizational account, or in the portal itself being displayed as a work or school account. A work or school account is linked to Azure Active Directory and in most scenarios linked to Office 365. The co-administrator accounts authenticate with their existing user credentials from Active Directory, which are being synchronized to Azure Active Directory. Another approach is using a personal account, also known as a Microsoft account or the former Microsoft Live ID, where the co-admins authenticate using a personal email account, like me@hotmail.com or me@outlook.com, or even using your custom domain, which is not federated with Office 365 or Azure Active Directory. Which brings me to the next video, deploying an Azure trial subscription, in which I'm going to explain you what is required, allowing you to create your trial subscription, and then walking you through a demo on how to actually create a trial subscription yourself.